You're working on it? Okay. Well, welcome everybody. I'm going to lay a few ground rules first of all before we start. First of all, if there's any banging on the windows, I'm going to stop the meeting until they move away from the windows, so just be aware of that. And I'm going to ask everybody to be very quiet because the sound does not carry very well back into the foyer there, so I'll ask you to be very quiet during the council meeting. And with that, I'm going to call the meeting to order, and I start with the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we live, work, and gather on the traditional and unceded territory of the Algonquin people, specifically the Temiskaming First Nation. We recognize the presence of the Temiskaming First Nation in our community since time immemorial and honor their long history of welcoming many nations to this beautiful territory and uphold and uplift their voice and values. With that, I'll ask the clerk for the roll call, please.
Thank you, Mayor. All members are present.
Thank you very much. Item number 3 is a review of revisions or deletions to the agenda. Councillor Whalen.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Kidd. I want to offer that we amend the agenda so as to ensure the procedures and process of council debate are respected. Item number 15A, new business, is a returning item of business. As such, it is being returned to the council table for council consideration and debate. It does not allow for any public participation. I respectfully ask council to waive the rules of procedure for this meeting of July the 12th only, and I would move to strike item 8, being the first question and answer period for tonight's meeting, only to ensure that no member of the public takes this opportunity to raise the issue of animal control, which would potentially place any member of council in a position of breaching the Conflict of Interest Act.
Do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Jelly? Any questions? Comments? I'll call the question. All in favor? That is carried. So item 8 will be deleted tonight. I've got a motion, be it resolved that City Council approves the agenda as amended. We have a mover and a seconder, Councillor MacArthur. Second by Councillor Whalen. All in favor? That is carried. Are there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature tonight?
Thank you. Mayor Kidd has declared a conflict of pecuniary interest related to Section 15, New Business, Item A, Administrative Report Number CS 024-2022, Animal Control and Pound Services Contract, and Section 16, Bylaws, Bylaw Number 2022-111, being a bylaw to execute an agreement between the City of Temiskaming Shores and Kidd Farms, Michael Kidd, owner-operator of South Temiskaming Animal Control Services, for the provision of animal control and pound services, as the son is the recommended bidder for the animal control and pound services in the City of Temiskaming Shores.
Thank you very much. Item number 6 is review and adoption of the council minutes. And I've got a motion, be it resolved that City Council approves the following minutes as amended. A, the regular meeting of council that was held on June 21st, 2022, and B, a special meeting of council held on June 27th, 2022. Yes, okay. Yeah, okay, I'll read that again. Just a slight typo. Be it resolved that City Council approves the following minutes as presented. So we are moving a second for that motion. Councillor Whalen, second by Councillor Foley. Any discussion on those 2 sets of minutes? All in favor? That is carried. There are no public meetings pursuant to the Planning Act, Municipal Act, or other statutes tonight. There are no presentations tonight. We're going to jump right into the communications. 10A is a letter from Barbara Naw, the Deputy Clerk for the Township of Matachewan, regarding a request for support resolution, inclusion of mailing addresses of on voters list provided to candidates, received on June the 28th for our information. 10B is a letter from Carrie Bellamy, the Clerk for the Municipality of Shania, regarding request for support resolution, release of all federal and provincial documents related to the former Mohawk Institute Residential School. That's been received for information. And C is the Temiskaming Health Unit's audited financial statements for 2021. Could people please turn their phones off, please? Thank you. That was received on July the 4th for your information. So I got a resolution, be it resolved, the City Council agrees to deal with communication items 10A through 10C according to the agenda references. We move in a seconder. Councillor LaFerrier, second by Councillor Jelly. Any comments? Councillor Whalen.
Yeah, just with regards to item A, the request for support for resolution to the inclusion of mailing addresses of the voters list. That comes up every election year. You think it would be a standard procedure with the province, so I just wanted to raise that. I think everybody keeps this in their fast printer because, like I say, every election year it's brought up again and again.
Yeah, I think it's more of a privacy issue there too. We don't want councillors in the public lobbying people with all their addresses or junk mail. So, okay. Any other questions, comments? Call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Item number 11 is the committees of council, the community and regional. I got a motion to be resolved the following minutes be accepted for information. A, the minutes of the Temiskaming Shores Library Board meeting held on May the 18th, 2022. B, the minutes of the District of Temiskaming Social Services Administration Board meeting held on May the 18th, 2022. C is the minutes of the Climate Change Committee meeting held on June the 6th, 2022. And D, the minutes of the Temiskaming Shores Accessibility Advisory Committee held on June the 15th, 2022. So we have a mover and second, Councillor MacArthur, second by Councillor Foley. Any questions on those minutes? All in favor of that motion? That is carried. Moving on to item number 12, the committees of council, the internal department. I got a motion to be resolved the following minutes be accepted for information. A, the minutes of the Corporate Services Committee meeting held on June the 9th, 2022. B, the minutes of the Protection of the Person and Property Committee meeting held on June the 9th, 2022. C is the minutes of the Public Works Committee meeting held on June the 9th, 2022. D is the minutes of the Recreation Services Committee meeting held on June the 13th, 2022. And E, the minutes of the Blue Box Ad Hoc Committee meeting held on June the 21st, 2022. We're moving a second for that motion. Moved by Councillor Ferrier, second by Councillor Jelly. Any comments on those sets of minutes? I'll call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Are there any reports by members of council tonight? Councillor Whalen.
Yeah, not to be the only one to speak, so I'll be quick. As many of you know, we passed a resolution appointing new people to the library board, and I just want to report that it seems like we have a very interested and active library board, so it's looking very promising for the library. So it's nice to see community members getting involved the way they do.
Any other reports, members of council? I know a couple of our councillors are going down to the AMO conference in a month's time there, so that should be interesting to get down there and see what the new Conservative Party for the province has laid out there and some of the other things going on, so that should be interesting. So, are there any notice of motions tonight? Councillor Whalen.
Yeah, thank you. Notice a motion for 12th of July 2022. Whereas municipal councils are elected to represent the greater interests of the constituents and the changing interests of society. And whereas these changing interests of society require a constant updating and refreshing of municipal standards, policies, and bylaws. And whereas the changing attitude toward kill pounds are creating a strong demand for no-kill facilities. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council for the Corporation of the City of Temiskaming Shores reject both current bids for the municipality's animal control contract. Further be it resolved that the current animal control contract be extended by 12 months as currently allowed within the existing contract. And further, that the incoming council undertake a full review of the municipality's awarding of this contract. And further, that the incoming council be encouraged to strongly lobby the provincial government and OMAFRA to amend Animals for Research Act in general to encourage the increase of no-kill facilities. And more specifically, sections 20.1 ABC, 20.11, 21.2, 22.1, and 22.2 of the Animals for Research Act. The municipality's own animal control bylaw, this municipality's purchasing policy, this municipality's tender and request for proposal policy, all be reviewed to better support the society's view favoring no-kill, overkill facilities. I'll present that to the clerk for the next meeting.
You're not wishing this motion to be addressed tonight? You're not wishing for this motion to be addressed tonight?
It can't be addressed while you're in the room, Your Honor.
I realize that. That's why I was just asking
yeah,
whether I had to
so
leave or not. So.
Once you leave, that's up to council. That's not up to me whether or not we deal with it this evening.
Okay. Well, I will declare a conflict with this, and I'll leave, and it can be dealt with. So, Councillor Hewitt, can you take on the chair?
Actually, I respectfully decline. Situations, and I'm elected as a councillor first and foremost, and represent
you. You are my deputy mayor, so you have to assume the chair. If you want to pass that chair, you can ask somebody else to take on that position. So you have to assume the chair now, and if you want to appoint somebody else, you can ask somebody else to take your place as chair.
It's my understanding under the municipal act that I can decline, and it's up to you to appoint someone in that position.
I will confer with my colleagues. Just on advice, I'll take a 5-minute recess and then look into this, and we'll resume in 5 minutes. So at 6:16. Thank you. if I call the meeting back to order, please. According to our procedural bylaws, I have to appoint my deputy mayor, and she has to assume the chair, and I will vacate the room, and then the interim city manager will explain the rules going forward from that. So Councillor Hewitt, would you please assume the chair?
My understanding is I have the right to respect the time.
No, according to the procedural bylaw, you have to assume the chair, then John will explain the rules from there. Please, thank you.
In regards to the municipal law, it's going to get changed.
So there's two parts. So first part I'll read and why you're taking the chair this week. Madam Chair, for the interests of the public and those viewing, I'll read a section of our our procedural bylaw that outlines what just happened as far as an action. So it's under 23.2. If a presiding officer desires to leave the chair for a purpose of taking part in a debate or for any other reason, which would include a conflict of interest, he or she shall designate another member to fill his or her place until he or she resumes the chair. So that's the first part. The second part, if I may. You have a resolution on the floor. 2.2 under general provisions of our procurement policy states, the rules and regulations contained herein may not be suspended except by an affirmative vote of 2/3 of the members of council present and voting. So you have 6 now in the room. 2/3 would be 4. That would require a mover and a seconder.
Sorry, John, I didn't quite understand the last part you explained.
Okay.
Sorry.
Do you want me to read again? Okay. So under 2.2, under general provisions, the rules and regulations contained herein may not be suspended except by an affirmative vote of 2/3 of the members of council present and voting. So basically what you're doing is suspending the rules. It does require a mover and a seconder.
Sure, I'll move it.
Just for clarity, this is to deal with the notice of motion that has been brought forward. As per the rules of the procurement bylaw, or procedural bylaw, a notice of motion is to be dealt with at the next subsequent meeting. If we are going to do that, we need to do a motion to waive procedure. Does everybody understand?
Councillor Whalen?
Yeah, my notice of motion is a new item, but this is a returning item. Do we not deal with the returning item first? We can deal with the notice of motion after, but we should deal with the business before council first.
Right, so I was asked to make comment on both of them. It's entirely up to the chair in which order she would like to move forward.
Yeah, I think the members are confused, not...
So regarding Danny's motion, can I not support that first?
He prefer you to deal with the one that's been deferred.
Pardon me? Yeah, can you please provide some clarification, Councillor Whalen, in regards to which item you'd like to be deferred first?
I'm not deferring anything. I'm saying item 15A is a deferred item that is being brought back in front of council. Should it not be dealt with before the notice of motion? In that case, we would read item 15A and look for a mover and a seconder. And then open it for debate.
Correct. So you're putting that forward, and, or we're just reading it off? Be it resolved that Council for the City of Temiskaming Shores acknowledges receipt of Administrative Report CS0240-2022, and that Council for the City of Temiskaming Shores directs staff to prepare the necessary bylaw to enter in a 3-year agreement with Mr. Kidd, Michael Kidd, Kidd Crest Farms Incorporated, operating as South Temiskaming Animal Control Services in the amount of $78,740 annually plus applicable taxes for consideration at the July 12, 2022 regular council meeting.
Now you ask for a mover and a seconder, and if you get them, then you can open it to the floor for debate.
A mover and a seconder.
Sure, I'll move that motion. Discussion, yeah.
Okay, so for those that want to discuss it, as councilors,
Want to go first? Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I want to start my comments by stating that tonight's decision has nothing to do with representing the best interests of our residents or the municipal coffers. The reason I can say this is that by recorded vote in February 2022, Council awarded a contract in regards to the Prospector and Developers Association of Canada in the range of $225,000 over 3 years. The city's own purchasing policy was disregarded. The mayor himself during deliberations claimed that for this dollar amount it is vital that we use a person with experience in the duties. All 3 members of the Protection to Persons and Property Committee voted to disregard the city's purchasing policy and award that contract based solely on experience. This is the exact opposite of what we are now recommending. They are now recommending by this resolution. Excuse me. It is also rumored that the change of contractor may be a result of what is being claimed as poor performance. It is clear that any claim by the Protection to Persons and Property Committee in regards to the performance of our current contractor is biased and tainted by the participation of Mayor Kidd in evaluating this contract over the last 3 years. Mayor Kidd himself has claimed a conflict of interest in the animal control contract, yet appointed himself to oversee the evaluate the performance of our contractor as a member of Protection to Persons and Property Committee. Is the Protection to Persons and Property Committee itself not creating a conflict of interest by sitting with the mayor to evaluate the contractor's performance? I want to say this is not an issue of dogs or cats. It is clear in today's society that these are not animals but family members. Many of our residents have been able to overcome the isolation and loneliness brought about by COVID by way of support from these furry family members. This is why people are so passionate on this issue. This is why it seems shameful that Council would even consider awarding a contract without first deliberating the issue of kill facilities and no-kill facilities. Finally, I reviewed the process of the request for a proposal, and I believe the rules of the process have been broken. The request clearly states that the bidder must perform 15 hours of patrol. Both bidders agreed to this. The bid by Kidd Crest Farms was reduced to 10 hours, and the financial impact adjusted accordingly. This clearly eliminates the Kidd Crest bid and as no longer meets the criteria of the request. As the interview committee should be aware, this negotiation on the hours of patrol can only be done with the agreement of both parties. Animals First tells me they were never offered this reduction in hours, and the interview committee continued its work, suggesting that the Kidd bid was now the lowest. There is no reduction in the animal's first bid price to compensate for the reduction allowed to the Kid Crest farms. They scored the bids based on this reduction in the Kid Crest bid, knowing it violates the request for proposal. My question to either Councillor Jelly or Councillor MacArthur, one was on the interview committee, the other moved the recommendation to council, is why is the PPP committee not enforcing this requirement of the request for proposals? And is the animal first bid still based on 15 hours?
To you, Councillor Whalen, it's my understanding, after speaking with our interim CAO, that there is a place where you can reduce that, and the contract had not been awarded, but it had been pointed out, and that there is a section, and it's, I believe I read it this afternoon, but I've read so much, I can defer to John if you'd like for the section.
I'd like to read that section to you. It says, the city reserves the right to enter into negotiations with a proponent, and any changes to the proposals that are acceptable to both parties will be binding. It has to be acceptable to both parties.
John, would you refresh into what you told me?
So in the RFP, which I know Councillor Whalen's very familiar with, it does refer to the fact that there's the rights of the city and the proponent to enter into negotiations for the purpose of clarification or supplementary information, as well as both parties can negotiate services. Now, your question, your thought process, when you say both parties, you're referring to the city by resolution of the council, or are you referring to the proponent?
We should close the door over there. We have the mayor participating. So my question is, why is one bid being reduced to 10 hours and almost $80,000 without that option being offered to the second bid? Because that changed the scoring.
So my understanding, being the new kid on the block, been here only a couple of weeks, I did some research on what had happened, and I understand, and there was interviews for both parties, being both proponents, and when the scoring was done, the Kid Crest Farm proposal was the one that received the most points. I can't speak to that because I wasn't sitting in the room on that. However, in the negotiations, I know there was $39,000 reduced on the number of hours. In other words, 5 hours a week on the Englehart portion of the contract. Why was that not extended to the other one? I think it's because they had chosen, being the interview committee had chosen, the successful bidder was the Kid Crest Farms.
Well, I would argue, though, that the scoring clearly shows Animals First was given 400 points based on price, and Kid Crest was given 500 points based on price. If this took place after the scoring, something's amiss here.
So, again, I wasn't in the room, I wasn't here, but I have asked questions, and my understanding is the people that were in the room felt, just on scoring, that the Kid Crest Farms proposal was the successful one they wanted to negotiate with, and it wasn't the proponent that changed the price, it was the city in their negotiations, what they're entitled to do, came up with $39,000 less. So I can't speak to the price, how the points were put together.
Yeah, and I realize you weren't in the room. That's why I put the question to the members of the PPP committee. If the price for the kid bid was higher during scoring, how come the scoring sheet show that you awarded based on a lower price for Kid Farms? Something's amiss here.
Any further comments? Mike?
Yes, I was in the room. All I'll say is that we interviewed both parties, We had a series of questions. They gave their answers. We give points. And at the end of the day or the session, we had a winner. We'll put it that way. As far as I was concerned, I was not involved in points, 500 points. All I was there for was to ask questions, which I did. They asked their questions, the three of us, and we came to the conclusion that one beat out the other. But I was not aware of any other comments between the city manager and the head of corporate services.
It's quite clear that the Kidcrest Farm was awarded 500 points based on price. Animals First was awarded 400 points based on price. Yet Animals First was...
Your Worship, I do have some questions as well, and just on that particular point, when I had asked that adjustment happened before the pricing, and I was told it was patrolling costs, and the patrolling costs were identified separately in one proposal. It wasn't in the other, and that was the answer I was given. Whether that's right or wrong, clearly, it doesn't help that we don't have the answers to that question. So again, I think from a smoke and mirrors perspective, it creates a challenge for us. I have a few questions, and I'm going to take us back 3 years. And I look at the administration report that was presented when the last proposals were given. And we had 3 folks that were bidding, to be the animal control officer. And we went through the same process. So I don't have a concern with the process. The process has been consistent. Where I have maybe a little bit of a concern is this is our admin report, okay, that came to us. And I think it's important that it gets read. The City of Temiskaming Shores has heard from members of the public surrounding different approaches to animal control within the city and implementing the concept of no-kill animal services. The PPP committee feels that this change in culture can be easily led by Ms. St. Germain with a built network and team approach. Ms. St. Germain shared various ideas and strategies on what would be implemented for animal control and pound services that will provide a fresh outlook with the goal of achieving a no-kill community. We awarded the contract to Ms. St. Germain, who had, by the way, the highest price out of the 3 that put forward, and scored the highest when it came to service. Okay, so that's 3 years ago. And I know there's, a lot of stuff going on Facebook that's kind of misleading different things. I'm just going through the facts that we have. So that's number one. I think, the community for sure, we're hearing from them. But us, we made that decision 3 years ago that we were moving in that direction. I do want to thank Dr. Wendy Ng for her presentation at our last meeting. I also want to thank Roxanne St. Germain for her presentation and Lynn Armstrong. And I think, Lynn's presentation was really heartwarming, Lynn, and I see you there, because it really does speak to what our community is all about. I think it's important because when we went from that to the animal contract itself, and that wording's not in the contract, and I think that's where there was some confusion. So in the contract, it was, the same contract that we've been signing for the last few years, and I think that's where some confusion, is getting out into the community. And I think it's important to go through the contract because it does help us answer a few more questions. And so the contract that Ms. St. Germain signed does not have a no-kill verbiage in the contract at all. Clearly the intent from the administration report is that's where we were moving. The agreement shall remain in effect for a 3-year term commencing on July the 1st, 2019 and terminating on June 30th. So, hey, that's why we started to come here. However, there is a clause, there's a renewal clause that's in the agreement. And the renewal clause reads, the contractor shall be required to give written notice of her intention to renew the lease on or before the first day of May prior to commencement of the renewal term. That renewal agreement did not get exercised. We did not receive a letter from, so when the question is, why did this go out for tender? The current contractor did not submit a request to the city. Again, I'm dealing with the facts and the documentations in front of me. Go on to this agreement, which for me is even a little bit more concerning. There's a clause in that contract, and the clause is 8.3. The city shall evaluate the contract performance on an annual basis. So that's our legal obligation in the contract. I did ask to see a copy of the performance evaluations. None were done. So that creates some challenges on where we're at. So again, I just want to deal with the facts. I try and separate the emotion from the facts. So for sure, we've made some errors, and I take full responsibility. I'm not blaming the PPP committee or anybody else. This is where we are, and we need to figure out where we go from there. The other thing, and I'm glad, Mike, you're here, because for me, I have 2 golden doodles, and I spend probably far too much time with them. But they're my fitness program. And what I struggled with, and I see the signs with regards to no kill, and clearly this council as a whole, definitely agreed to moving, in that direction. And when I read the 2 proposals, I can clearly say that both proposals are moving much stronger in that direction. I will say, the difference is, one has provided a shelter on top of providing the animal service contract for us, and the other proponent, that's not in their proposal. However, they are reaching out and building relationships with other folks, and that's where, I think a lot of misleading things going on, and, to talk about a kill pound versus a no-kill pound, I don't think we're talking about that at all in the 2 proposals that are in front of us. And for me personally, I do want to thank each and every person that did spend some time with me to just share their views and help me just get my head around, some of the different things. But I think it's important to just share some of the comments that were in the proposal, Mike, if you're okay with that, because, it starts with the dedicated pound facility will meet and maintain OMAFRA's provincial standards at all times. It will not be utilized as a shelter or rescue. Very clear in the proposal. To limit potential occurrences that could involve insurance claims, access to the pound will be restricted to the pound keeper, and for the purposes of reclamation, adoption, and dog and cat tag purchases, residents accompanied by the pound keeper. And then more importantly, when we get into the humane services piece, South Temiskaming Animal Control Services does not intend to run its pound facility as a long-term shelter or animal rescue. Very clear in the proposal. We anticipate housing unclaimed animals for a few weeks. Not sure what the definition is of a few weeks, so it does get vague, and it does, lead to some concerns about what happens. Is it a few weeks, 2 weeks? Is it 3 weeks? Is it 4 weeks? Not clear. Following the expiration of the redemption period, each animal will be assessed on a case-by-case basis for its suitability to be adopted, sent to a shelter/rescue, or euthanized, with euthanasia only being used as a last resort. So again, a lot different than what I'm reading in a few different areas. We will aim to work with other local regional shelters and rescues with the aim of finding a new home for those animals that are not claimed during the redemption period or adopted shortly thereafter. And those were just some of the things that really jumped out, and I was struggling with, my decision. It is, clearly a 600-foot standalone building, is fully insulated with electricity, climate control to provide ideal conditions for the animals. So a lot of those things, from my view, going back 3 years, 6 years before that, we can honestly say we weren't there, moving in the right direction. So for me, looking at the two, clearly I am in agreement with no kill. That doesn't mean that, one proposal that's in front of me is different than the other. It doesn't mean that, that's the case. But clearly when we sent out the request for proposals, that was not clear in the proposal, that it should be no kill. And I'm not sure that, in the city's best interest, that, we handled that appropriately. It's just my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor LaFerrier. Are there any further comments?
Your Worship, if you don't mind, there was just I just wanted to finish up, if that's okay, Doug. Just the other, concern and is the conflict of interest piece, and I'm not going to speak on behalf of the mayor, but again, the issue was raised. There was questions that came, to us, and I do want to just share that I've gone through all of our minutes, and I'm not going to speak to what Councillor Whalen has already shared, but on March the 31st, the first time the RFP contract for animal services came up. It was March 31st. It went to the PPE committee. That was chaired by Mayor Carmen Kidd. There was not a conflict of interest declared at that time, but it was just information purposes to the committee that said the animal control contract is coming up for renewal. So I don't know what other conversations, that's what was in the minutes. Again, on May the 19th, at the PPE committee, animal control came up again, and at that point in time, Mayor Kidd did chair that meeting. Again, did not declare a conflict of interest, and it was appointing Councillor Mike MacArthur to the committee that would be evaluating the RFP proposals. On June the 19th, at the PPE committee, and it was part of our council package tonight, and it was at the PPE committee. Mayor Kidd did declare a conflict of interest. He removed himself and did not participate in the conversations as it related to animal control, and has, to my knowledge, continued to provide a conflict of interest and removing himself from the situation. So, for me, I just, want to make sure that we're doing our homework and making sure that, those pieces are there. So I just want to thank you for that, and I'm done.
Any other further comments? So I'd like to appoint Councillor Jelly to step up to the chair so that I can at least debate and share some of my comments.
Okay, thank you for surprisingly turning that over to me, but I'll open it for any further comments. And Councillor Hewitt, you had indicated you wanted to make some comments.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have many comments, but I'm in light of the fact that it's been very much reviewed in regards to Councillor Whalen as well as Councillor LaFerriere, I'll probably keep it short. However, there's a few things that were a red flag to me right from the get-go. The fact that we were going to vote on this before we had any deliberations whatsoever from council, even though it was supported a motion for a contract from PPP, it had never had the communications with council at large. So for that, I was very much opposed to right from the get-go. In regards to the request for proposal that went out 3 years ago, it was very clear in the administrative documentation that we would support a no-kill, and that was signed by corporate services and otherwise. So for that not to go out again was another red flag. The fact that we have our public here tonight stepping up to the plate, a beautiful night like tonight, and coming out to council to voice their concerns, that's a big red flag for me as well. In regards to conflict of interest, on the June 27th meeting, I understand that we had a letter of recommendation that council please consider that we have an open forum at Riverside Place so that more voices could be shared and we could have that communication before anything was voted on. And although Mayor Kidd declared conflict of interest, he sat and spoke very heavily that we were not going to support that because we're not technologically adapt to do that, which I have a very challenging time with because I think in 2022, I sit on Zoom calls 24/7 and we can do all kinds of things. So for those reasons, I mean, there's so many different reasons at hand that I would like to see this shelved and for further communications and deliberations and our city to support what we actually want to see as a vision moving forward, be it a pound or a collaborative approach or otherwise. So thank you to all of you coming out to share your support, to speak up. We had some very eloquent speakers, not just through email and petitions. And we have 3,000 individuals right now that have taken the time not just to sign a petition against this moving forward, but to also voice their words to pen to share that communication. We had Dr. Ng specifically speak out and other individuals of expertise. I think given the light of the fact and everything that has moved forward, we would be remiss to not move back, step back, and consider all options at hand.
Okay, if we could just move on, please. We're on the subject. Let's just move forward. Councillor Hewitt, you will take your chair back.
Sorry, it's okay.
Can I please ask for clarification on 2 items in regards to a potential motion moving forward?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just going back to Councillor Whalen's comments, I just want to make some clarifications so it's clear in the minutes. You are correct when you said that the Kidcrest Farms made a breakdown of all their numbers, so it was clear of what we were talking about. In the other proposal that Roxanne put forward, it was one bulk price, and that created some questions in a lot of people's minds as to why it went that way. You also made reference to the fact that the city manager was in on that. I just want to make it clear it was not this city manager, it was a previous city manager. Thank you. At this point, Madam Chair, I believe you have a motion that I would direct it back to the person that authored it. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I believe you have a motion on the table, Danny, and do we have anyone to forward that particular motion? Okay. Okay, so...
Are you speaking to my notice of motion or the motion in 15A?
My understanding, we'd have to vote on 15A first before we can put another motion forward. Can I ask you, Danny, for your vote?
Yeah, I want to request a recorded vote on this.
My apology, Councillor MacArthur.
That's okay, Madam. I just want to set the record straight that Chris Oslin is a very good guy, and he was having some tough times. And when this was coming up for the two parties to be questioned, I said, who's doing this? He said, well, corporate service manager and myself. How would you like to be, how would you like to be the third person? I said, sure. I don't know Mr. Kidd, and I don't know Roxanne. I met them for the first time in this interview. My job was to listen to the answers of all the questions from the three of us. I made my assumption. Some of the comments Roxanne made were terrific, and the same with Mr. Kidd. Some weren't. That's fine. At the end of the day, I handed in what I figured was a fair mark on that question times, say, 10, 12 questions. And I would never be any part of trying to hurt one side or the other. I don't know these people. I don't hear anything about them. I know that we've had Roxanne for 3 years, and yeah, maybe there were some things that she didn't get done that she should have done, but she was told and she knew. And before that, the other fellow, Garrett, he was our animal control. But after listening tonight to the comments and from my colleagues, there's definitely a serious question of what happened. But at no time did Mr. Oslin ever say to me anything about too much money on one side, no kill on another. That was never brought up between the two of us. He may have said later, or he assumed with the corporate service person what was going on, but we never talked about that. We talked about just, here are the questions, and that's the way it is. I'm a straight shooter. I've been around for 16 years. I don't cheat people. I would never. And as far as conflict of interest goes, I've had different colleagues on this panel of people that have had kids working for companies, and they declared a conflict. Councillor Foley has a sister and a father working for the city, and has always announced his intentions not to take part. Mr. LaFerriere is the same. If something's going on and it affects his business, he has stepped aside. I did not and will not ever hire someone or deliberately not let someone get a job because I don't like them. And I can't be like that. I was never raised like that. Everybody should be treated equal. But after what I've heard tonight, I've got some different views on what the bottom line is. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor MacArthur. Any other comments?
Your Worship, I'd just like to make one more. And, there's a lot of, personal attacks and comments that are going across Facebook, and I would really appreciate, if they would stop. I think the second thing, is the employees for the city. We have a responsibility to protect the employees for the city, so that's our responsibility, and we do take that seriously. With regards to Mayor Carmen Kidd, I've sat on council for 8 years, and I can tell you there isn't one of us here that puts the hours that Mayor Kidd puts in to the city. And, we deal with a lot of tough issues, but I'll tell you, if you want something done, I would back Carmen to the end and back, because the hours he has put in to support the municipality is unbelievable. And yes, we do get a little stipend for what we do. I can tell you, if I calculated that on an hourly rate, I'm not sure that I would be able to feed my dogs, and they are quite large. So I just wanted to make sure that the comments I made, when I look at the two committee meetings that Carmen spoke to, I'm not necessarily convinced that's a conflict of interest, because we weren't talking about the RFP itself, and when we did, he removed himself from there. But I do think it's important that we all realize we're all here for the betterment of our community. That's why we do it. I might be a little bit more successful than some of the other guys because both my kids have relocated back here, and that's really why I do what I do for the community. And I just want to thank everybody for coming out. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor LaFerriere. In regards to some of those comments, oh my goodness, I have a whole lot to say, but regardless, I think Carmen's reputation speaks for himself, and he's not the issue at hand here. And I think he knows, anyone here understands that. In regards to, we have one more comment, and then I'd like to see it move forward. Mover and a seconder.
That's what I was going to ask, a question on procedure. We're moving this motion forward. Then are we moving to the bylaws if this goes through? That's my question. Or are we allowed at this time to address the two proponents?
The motion.
I know we can after bylaw, but the motion?
So the motion on the table is the motion 15A that Danny's asked for the recorded vote, is the motion as it's presented on the screen right now. That's what you're going to be voting on. So
I'll read it one more time before we have a recorded vote. Be it resolved that Council for the City of Temiskaming Shores acknowledges receipt of Administrative Report Number CS0240-2022, and that Council for the City of Temiskaming Shores directs staff to prepare the necessary bylaw to enter into a 3-year agreement with Mr. Michael Kidd Crest Farms, Inc., operated as South Temiskaming Animal Control Services in the amount of $78,740 annually, plus applicable taxes, for consideration at the July 12th, 2022 regular meeting. As a recorded vote, clerk takes that.
As Councillor Whalen requested, you will vote first. Councillor Whalen?
Opposed.
Councillor Foley?
Opposed.
Councillor Jelly? Councillor LaFerriere?
Opposed.
Councillor MacArthur?
Opposed.
And Councillor Patricia Hewitt as Deputy Mayor?
Opposed.
Your Worship, the motion is defeated. So we would need a notice, we would need a motion to waive procedure
I'll move that motion.
to deal with Danny's motion, notice of motion.
So we have a notice of motion. Do you want to read the notice of motion again? And I understand that you're going to support first support, and we need a seconder.
I'm the mover, Jeff's the seconder.
Okay. We
Would
have
you
a
like me to read it?
request for clarification.
Yes, clarification, please. Councillor Whalen, when you gave your notice of motion, you mentioned no kill. You mentioned 12 months. And
Excuse me, we have to vote to waive the rules of procedure first before we can discuss
I'm
this.
sorry.
So just for the benefit of the audience, when we suspend the notice of motion, what we're doing is basically saying that even though in our procedure bylaw it says that his motion would come forward at a future meeting, with 2/3 or a majority of council, they can waive that rule and move forward with that resolution tonight. So that's what council's about to do. Thank you.
Can I please have a recorded vote on this? So just for clarification, we voted on the first item of business, 15A, but Danny has another motion on the table that we're going to be voting at hand. Would you like that read again, please?
Can I ask him a question?
Absolutely. And we'll also have it read again.
Sorry, guys, just to clarify, before we even get into his motion, we just need to waive our notice of motion so that we can even speak to it. Okay, so, and I will move that we do that.
We need a seconder. Thank you, Councillor MacArthur. All in favor? No taken. So we've moved the procedural bylaw that we can now put forth a notice of motion.
The motion is, yes, that they just voted in favor to waive the rules of procedure to deal with the notice of motion that was presented by Councillor Whalen.
Would you like me to reread it, Madam Chair?
Absolutely, Councillor Whalen.
Thank you. And I'll gladly move it too, just for clarification. But whereas municipal councils are elected to represent the greater interests of the constituents and the changing interests of society, and whereas these changing interests of society require constant updating and refreshing of municipal standards, policies, and bylaws, and whereas the changing attitude toward kill pounds are creating strong demand for no-kill facilities, now therefore be it resolved, the Council for the Corporation of the City of Temiskaming Shores reject both current bids for the municipality's animal control contract. Further be it resolved that the current animal control contract be extended by 12 months with an option as currently allowed within the existing contract. And further, that the incoming council undertake a full review of the municipality's awarding of this contract. And further, that the incoming council be encouraged to strongly lobby the provincial government and OMAFRA to amend the Animals Research Act in general to encourage the increase of no-kill facilities. And more specifically, Section 20.1 ABC, 20.11, 21.2, 22.1, and 22.2 of the Animals Research Act. This municipality's animal control bylaw, this municipality's purchasing policies, this municipality's tender and request for proposal policy, all be reviewed to better support society's view with favoring no-kill or kill facilities. And I can give some explanation should the need come up.
So Danny, thank you for that motion. Is there a seconder?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Ferrier. Could I please have a recorded vote, Gilly? Any questions or concerns first off? Sorry about that.
Yes, Councillor Whalen, you offered an explanation, or I would be pleased if you would just give a bit more of an explanation.
Thank you for that. One of my main concerns in this, and I agree with Councillor Ferrier, no individual is responsible for where we are tonight. We collectively are responsible for where we are tonight. But this motion gives the opportunity to do something that we have never done yet. We've never debated or reviewed the financial impact of a no-kill facility versus a kill facility. The reason I speak specifically to the ANAFRA and the Animals Research Act and those specific sections is because if you read that, the Animal Research Act right now speaks only to kill. It doesn't speak to no kill. That has been a problem since 1990 when this legislation was drafted. It does not, it actually encourages a kill facility over a no kill facility. That needs to be debated, and that needs to be debated with the province as well, not just amongst the new members of council. We're in a position where we're making a serious decision on something that I don't think we're educated on enough. We haven't educated ourselves enough, even on the process, I asked a question about scoring. Nobody seems to know how scoring was done the way it was done. We need to follow procedure. We need to know what is the impact of saying we want a no-kill facility. That's all I'm asking for. Let's research that.
Go ahead.
I totally understand where you're coming from when you were quoting the Act. I'd just like to state that in my opinion, both these contracts either would be able to do it, and they were both on the no-kill side from submissions that you made. That's my only comment. You made a good point about we need to lobby the government for some strength and some more clout in this, but in nowhere in this contract do I read it depends on what terminology you put on kill. And as constable, geez, I'm in my olden days now, as Jeff LaFerrier said, he has pets. I have a pet, just chipped and tagged. I mean, you lose a pet, you lose something good. And I don't think there's anybody here that will disagree, and I'm sure everybody will agree, but that's the point I wanted to make, that in my opinion, neither one of these contracts would be kill contracts.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And actually, I think it's this council that's made up the term kill, no kill. It's referred to as either an adoption policy or a euthanasia policy. So it's just a term we've become accustomed to using.
Go ahead.
My last comment, I'm going to lose my train of thought here. It's you're absolutely right. It's the perception of it, and my issue is there's a lot of innuendo out there right now that are affecting both sides in this competition. I would have liked the opportunity to clear some of that up, but I think the request has already been made. We all sit here for the good of the community. Some of us take different views. Some of us vote for different reasons. And I just want to make that clear. It would have been nice to clear the air on the innuendo that is out there. There's people being adversely affected with some of the statements that are out there.
Thank you, Councillor Jelly.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Your Worship. Yeah, the challenge is when we talk no kill and kill, and the difference between the two offers is the shelter, right? So everything works fine as long as somebody's volunteering and providing the shelters. But as soon as the shelters are full, all of a sudden, how you manage that, and with the facility that you do have, it changes dramatically, what goes on. And I think that's, when I look at the motion that Danny put forward, it really is taking a look at all of the aspects and saying, what's it going to cost the city? And I think for the last 3 years, it hasn't cost us a lot more than what we were paying for animal control. But you can see the difference in the proposal that we signed 3 years ago to it's 30% higher now. And so clearly it's costing us more to do it. And that's because we have, 2 shelters in our area that are really dependent on the amount of volunteers, and most of them are here tonight. But once they're full, if we're not seeing a difference in the number of animals that we are, seeing, we're going to be in a challenge, and the cost is going to be that much more. So. Just my thoughts. Thank you.
Sorry.
Councillor Jelly.
Thanks for that, Jeff. Ironically, on the news at noon, there was a report on that very thing that are saying shelters are getting filled up and there's an overflow of animals, and that is disturbing.
Councillor Foley.
Yeah, just in regards even with provincial side, looking at the city of Waterloo, the city of Niagara Falls, Huntsville, they all had all their wording when it comes to 3-day policy or 72 hours. We're not the only ones that had that in our bylaw. It's just it's I guess provincial legislation, and it does obviously need to be looked at.
Thank you. And I'll have Councillor Jelly step up one more time, please, so I can just share my comments.
Councillor Hewitt, go ahead.
I think in this particular time with the item at hand, there's many different options that we can explore moving forward, and there is evidence out there that it's not necessarily more financially responsible one way or the other. I think Our people have spoken. It's up to us as council to try and deliberate on how we can provide that best solution. I hope to see something that provides a little bit of both at some point, because we do know in some situations there's some detrimental challenges that can never be corrected, even with the best of vet services. However, in regards to the policy for 3 days, I would like to see, even though other jurisdictions have mentioned that, and it's practically protocol, I would like to see that extended, especially when we have a smaller communication and it's a little bit more manageable, in my opinion. So moving forward, I think that we can land in the middle, or not necessarily in the middle, but at least support our public's needs. Moving forward, there is a lot of evidence out there, and I encourage all of you to look into it.
Councillor Whalen, take your seat.
Okay, moving forward, I understand we have a motion on the table. It's already been moved and seconded. Can you please provide that reading, or perhaps Kelly would provide that reading?
You want me to read it again?
He doesn't remember.
I feel like there's going to be a test after.
I certainly don't need it read again, but it was my understanding that someone might need it read again. Are we good with it? Okay, all good with it, thank you. Let's have a recorded vote on this.
Councillor Hewitt.
In favor.
Councillor Jelly. Councillor Ferrier.
In favor.
Councillor MacArthur.
In favor.
Councillor Whalen.
In favor.
Councillor Foley. In favor. Your Worship, the motion carries.
Thank you, Councillor Whalen.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Hewitt. I just want to say with the public here that I think we put you in a very uncomfortable position at the last meeting. I congratulate you for stepping up again at this meeting. But I want to remind everybody, and Jeff brought up this social media thing. I'm not good at social media, so I apologize. I haven't read anything you've written. But, you know, both people that bid on the current contract are our own neighbors, so let's put this behind us. I'm hoping they both bid on the next time it goes out. So, you know, let's remember that we all have an opinion, and it's being strongly expressed here tonight. But that's why I brought up our own bylaws are written to follow OMAFRA's Annals for Research. That's why we're in the hiccup we are today. So let's start at the start and start over. So I just wanted to get that message out. But thank you, Councillor Hewitt.
Thank you for those comments, Councillor Whalen.
Mayor comes back.
With that, we'll have Mayor...
Yeah, the meeting resumes as per the agenda.
Mayor Kidd resumes his position.
I'm going to call a brief recess. I want to confer with the city manager and the clerk about a point of order, so we'll take a 10-minute recess. Thank you. to check the procedural bylaw and make sure somebody couldn't come back on us on how we proceed with that particular motions there. So, but we will move on to 15B, new business. So, motion reads, be it resolved the council for the city of Twisting Shores acknowledge receipt of memo 030-2022 CS, and the council is hereby in concurrence with proposed telecommunication tower for Rogers Communication Inc., which is to be located on property at 137428 Peters Road. Mover and a seconder, Councilor Whalen, Councilor Jelly. Any comments? All in favor? That is carried. 15C is Memo 031-2022 CS, a deeming bylaw for Graydon/McCarty at 697 Latchford Street. I motion whereas the owners of 697 Latchford Street in Hillsbury would like to merge lots on title through the adoption of a deeming bylaw in compliance with the Planning Act in order to create one property with one roll number. And whereas the owners have acknowledged that registration of the pending deeming bylaw on title will be at their expense, now therefore be it resolved that council for the city of Twisting Shores hereby direct staff to prepare the necessary bylaw to deem Plan M54NB, lots 107, 108, parcel 13748, SST, to no longer be lots on a plan of subdivision, and further that council hereby direct staff to prepare the necessary deeming bylaw for consideration at July 12th regular council meeting. So, mover and second of that motion, Councilor MacArthur, second by Councilor Hewitt. Any questions? All in favor? That is carried. 15D is Memo 032-2022 CS, Alexander Farms lease agreement. And I got a motion to be resolved the council for the city of Twisting Shores acknowledge receipt of Memo 032-2022 CS. The council for the city of Twisting Shores agrees to assign the benefit of the lease agreement with Alexander Farms to permit the use of municipal land for cultivation purposes by law 2021-094 to Season Ranch for the remaining term ending on December 31st, 2026, unless terminated earlier by either party. Move Councilor LaFerrier, second by Councilor Foley. All in favor? That is carried. 15E, Administrative Report CS 028-2022, the sale of municipal property for Nugget Street and part of a lane. I got a motion to be resolved the council for the city of Twisting Shores acknowledge receipt of Administrative Report CS 028-2022. The council directs staff to continue with the disposition of municipal road allowances being part of lane abutting lots 11, 12, and 13 on Plan M71NB, described as Part 1 on Plan 54R 6269. And B, Nugget Street, described as Part 2 on Plan 54R 6269 in accordance with Bylaw 2015-160. And the council directs staff to prepare the necessary bylaw to stop up and close the above described road allowances and to enter into an offer of purchase and sale agreement between the city of Twisting Shores as vendor and Bradley Sauvé as a purchaser for the above described road allowances in accordance with Bylaw 2015-160 for consideration at the July 12, 2022 regular council meeting. So, moving a second for that motion, Councilor Jelly, second by Councilor Foley. All in favor? That is carried. Moving on to 15F. Administrative Report CS 029-2022. The Northern Ontario Mining Showcase at the PDAC for 2023. And the motion reads, be it resolved the council for the city of Twisting Shores acknowledge receipt of Administrative Report CS 029-2022. And the council confirms the application to FedNor for funding support to enable the city to lead the Northern Ontario Mining Showcase at the 2022 Prospectors and Developers Association of Canada Convention in Toronto. Moved by Councilor MacArthur, second by Councilor Hewitt. Any discussion? All in favor? That is carried. 15G is Administration Report CS 030-2022, the Canadian Institute of Mining, Metallurgy, and Petroleum, CIM Convention in 2023. And the motion reads, be it resolved the council for the city of Twisting Shores acknowledge receipt of Administrative Report CS 030-2022. And the council confirms the application submitted on June 28, 2022 to FedNor for funding support to enable the city to lead the Northern Ontario Mining Showcase at the 2023 Canadian Institute of Mining, Metallurgy, and Petroleum Convention in Montreal, this time from April 30th to May 3rd, 2023. So moved by Councilor Whalen, second by Councilor Hewitt. Any comments? All in favor? That is carried. 15H, Administrative Report PPP 003, 2022, the appointment of volunteer firefighter. And the Council for the City of Twin Shores acknowledge receipt of the Administrative Report PPP 003, 2022. The Council hereby appoints Charles Amiot as a volunteer firefighter to the Twin Shores Fire Department in accordance with the recruitment and retention program. Who would like to make that motion? Councilor Jelly. Second by Councilor Foley. So, any comments? Yes, Councilor Whalen.
Yeah, nothing serious. I just want to say how nice it is. It seems we never have a shortage of people stepping up to fill our fire department opening. So, you know, we should be very appreciative of this fact. So, thank you.
Thank you. I'll call the question. All in favor? So, that is carried. 15I, Memo 008, 2022 PW, the extension for the rental of graders. A motion be resolved, the Council for the City of Twin Shores acknowledge receipt of Memo 008, 2022 PW. The Council directs staff to prepare the necessary bylaw to amend bylaw 2021-095 as amended to extend the agreement with Jade Equipment for the period beginning November 1st, 2022 through to April 1st, 2023, and to authorize the delegated authority to the Mayor and Clerk to execute any required documentation on behalf of the City of Twin Shores related to the extension of the Jade Equipment rental agreement, providing the documentation does not create any financial liability for the city beyond the approved budget for consideration at tonight's July 12th regular council meeting. So, moved by Councilor Ferrier, second by Councilor Jelly. So, any comments? All in favor? That is carried. 15J is Memo 009, 2022 PW, the extension for the supply and delivery of bulk course highway de-icing salt. And the motion reads, be it resolved, the Council for the City of Twin Shores acknowledge receipt of Memo 009, 2022 PW. The Council directs staff to prepare the necessary bylaw to amend bylaw 2019-114 to extend the agreement with Compass Minerals Canada Corp. for the supply and delivery of bulk course highway salt for 3 years in the amount of $130 per ton for 2022-23. Winter operations, $133 per ton for the 2023-2024 winter operations, and $135 per ton for the 2024-2025 winter operations, plus applicable taxes for consideration at tonight's regular council meeting. So, we're moving to second by Councilor MacArthur, second by Councilor Gillian. Discussion, all in favor? That is carried. 15K, Administrative Report PW 024, 2022, the Blue Box Transition Municipal Involvement Decision. And I got a motion to be resolved that Council for the City of Twin Shores acknowledge receipt of Administrative Report PW 024, 2022. The Council support the preferred strategy with producer responsibility organizations for Blue Box collection beyond the city's transition date of January the 1st, 2025. The Council directs staff to respond to the Circular Material Ontario survey indicating that the City of Twin Shores does not wish to enter into a contractual agreement to provide Blue Box collection services beyond the city's transition date of January 1st, 2025. And the Council directs staff to provide notification of the decision to all municipalities that are in agreement with the city for the acceptance of Blue Box material at the Spoke Transfer Station. Moving to second here, moved by Councilor Ferrier, second by Councilor Whalen. Steve's here to answer any questions. Councilor Whalen?
Another question, just a comment that for the media and general public, if they're still watching, that the municipality will still be responsible for solid waste. The producers are going to, from that effective date, the producers will be responsible for recycling and picking up the cost of recycling. My understanding after 12 years of arguing this is that the average resident should see no change in service after the date of transition. I hope everything continues the way it is, because I'm actually very pleased with recycling in the city, so there should be no visible change to the average resident. Am I right, Steve?
Yeah, that is correct. As per the direction letter from the minister, the average resident is to see no change in the transition, and it's the producer's responsibility to ensure that that takes place. Also written into the regulation, any change that they would see would be of a positive aspect in that more material will be added to what actually will be recycled.
Mike back on. Any other comments? Call the question, all in favor? That is carried. And last item, new business 15L, Administrative Report RS 015-2022, the adoption of a climate lens for the City of Twisting Shores. And the motion reads, be resolved, the Council for the City of Twisting Shores acknowledge receipt of Administrative Report RS 015-2022, and the Council directs staff to implement the use of the Clean Air Partnership Climate Lens to integrate the tool into the administration reporting requirements for the council were deemed appropriate, such as on matters pertaining to procurement, budgeting, and policy implementation. So, moving to seconder, Councilor MacArthur, second by Councilor Laferrier. Any comments? Matt's here to explain. Anybody's got any questions as well. So, all in favor? That is carried. And that's the end of the new business. We're going into bylaws, so I will declare my conflict again. And have we dealt with first and second reading and all that? So that's all been dealt with? Oh, I see. Okay, so we'll scratch that and go on to draft resolution. Be resolved, the bylaw 2022-117, being a bylaw to authorize the sale of land to Natasha Burrell, being 545 Lakeshore Road. Bylaw 2022-118, being a bylaw to designate any plan of subdivision or part thereof that has been registered for 8 years or more, which shall be deemed as not a registered plan of subdivision for 697 Latchford Street. Bylaw 2022-119, being a bylaw to stop up and close a highway, part of a lane, abutting lots 11, 12, and 13 on Plan M71NB, described as Part 1 on Plan 54R6269. Bylaw 2022-120, being a bylaw to stop up and close a highway for Nugget Street, being legally described as Part 2 on Plan 54R6269. Bylaw 2022-121, being a bylaw to authorize the sale of land for a part of a laneway, described as Part 1 on Plan 54R6269 to Bradley Solvay. Bylaw 2022-122, being a bylaw to authorize the sale of land of Nugget Street, described as Part 2 on Plan 54R6269 to Bradley Solvay. Bylaw 2022-123, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2021-095 as amended to enter into a rental agreement with Jade Equipment Company Limited for the short-term rental of one tandem drive motor grader and two six-wheel drive graders for a one-year extension. And lastly, bylaw 2022-124, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2019-114 to enter into an agreement with Compass Minerals Canada Incorporated for the supply and delivery of bulk course highway salt for the City of Twisting Shores with a 3-year extension. These bylaws be hereby introduced and given first and second readings. So, we're moving to seconder, Councilor MacArthur, second by Councilor Jelly. All in favor? That is carried. And motion be resolved that bylaw 2022-117, 118, 119, 120, 121, 122, 123, and 124 be given third and final reading, be signed by the mayor and clerk, and the corporate seal affixed thereto. Moved by Councilor Ferrier, second by Councilor Foley. Any last comments? All in favor? That is carried. So scheduled meetings, the next one set up for Tuesday, August the 9th. And then after that, the regular scheduled meeting will be Tuesday, September the 6th, 2022. So we've reached our second question and answer period. Has anybody got a question of council at this point? So, hearing and seeing none, we'll move on. We've got a motion. Be resolved that council agrees to appoint John Telfer as clerk for the closed session, item 19E, regarding labor relations or employee negotiations, the city manager recruitment process update, and for the duration of the meeting. Okay, so we have a mover and seconder in the close, Councilor Jelly, second by Councilor Hewitt. All in favor? We are taking a 10-minute recess, and then we'll close the doors, Matt, and then we'll go into the closed session. Did I miss something? I didn't. Okay. Yeah, okay, sorry, we got an extra motion in there. We got one more motion here. Motion be resolved that council agrees to convene in closed session at 8 o'clock to discuss the following matters: adoption of the June 21st and June 27th, 2022 special closed session minutes. B, under section 239.2 of the Municipal Act 2001, personal matter of an identifiable individual, including municipal and local board employees. C, under section 239.2E of the Municipal Act 2001, litigation and potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local boards, the building matter update. And D, under section 239.2E of the Municipal Act, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board for contract concerns. And lastly, E, under section 239.2D of the Municipal Act 2001, labor relations or employee negotiations for the city manager recruitment process update. So, moved by Councilor Whalen, second by Councilor Foley. All in favor? We are adjourned for 10 minutes.